Welcome to Whispering Loudly, the award-winning Workshop Whisperer podcast, as featured by Apple, with Rachael Evans, the #1 automotive business coach in the aftermarket, thanks to titanium sponsor Mechanic Desk and gold sponsor Podium. Welcome to Performance Hub with Dean Evans.
Whispering Loudly is the Workshop Whisperer podcast, and we are joined today by Dean Evans for Performance Hub. But before we get there, we would love for you to go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, write a 5-star review and give Rachael a little bit of love. What do you want to say about the podcast? Say whatever you want, just don't make it mean, because if you don't have something nice to say, like your nan used to say to you, don't say anything at all. Welcome to the show today, Dean, and you're going to talk a little bit about leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on this episode again of Performance Hub. So what we're going to talk about today is really knowing what approach you need to take when your team is in a little bit of trouble. Because ultimately, if you're going to run any form of successful shop, then one of the fundamental skills that you are going to need to invest some time, some attention, some energy into developing will be your leadership.
And we get so many of our new clients, Dean, when they come in, they know they need to do some work on their leadership, but it seems very overwhelming. So I think if we were able to discuss some helpful, pointers, first places to start about leadership, that would be great.
Yeah, cool. And so this is what we're going to talk about, the 3 positions of leadership. Now, these concepts I share with you, I first heard about them from a gentleman out of the US called John Mattone, and he was famous for being Steve Jobs' one and only coach. And we had the good fortune of hearing him talk at an event that we were at once. And what I loved about these 3 positions of leadership that I'm going to share with you on this podcast is that it helps you really understand what your team needs from you in situations where they feel unsafe.
Okay. Sounds interesting.
So when I talk about team from here in the 3 positions, I want you to think in terms of your family, okay? And I'll relate those to you. So the 3 positions we're going to talk about is behind, beside, and between. First of all, we'll talk from a family, all right? If you're a mum, a dad, and you were just out for a day together, and you found yourself in a precarious position or a dangerous situation, you would assume a leadership position for your family in that moment. Right? So let's imagine you're out for the day. Suddenly, there's just been some situation, some circumstance that has put your family in danger. There is a threat to you, your partner, your kids right there and then. All right? You've got a choice on where you're going to stand. Now, if we look at these 3 positions, behind, beside, between, this will make it really, really clear on what you need to do in each one of those situations. There's a threat. There's danger. Right? If you choose to stand behind your family at that time, what's the risk? Well, the risk is that they're going to get hurt, seriously damaged, scarred, okay? So when your team feels unsafe, unsure, uncertain in the workplace, if you choose to take a position of leadership behind them, you're actually exposing them to certainly to the perceived dangers and threats that they feel about their employment, their value, their involvement in your shop. But here's the flip side, right? When you've had a conversation with them around, where they're at in their performance, what's required of them on a task, on a job, on a repair, with a customer, and you have helped them get very, very clear. So you've given them some certainty, some surety, some confidence around what to do. Then it is entirely appropriate to stand behind them and support them as they go and resolve that particular issue. I trust that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Cool. So let's look at the second one, right? Same situation now. There's a threat. There's danger for your family, all right? If you choose to stand beside them, then you've got to make a choice. And the choice is, who do you save and who gets hurt? Now, that's tough because the moment you make a choice around who you're going to save, and who you can't save, well, that throws up a whole lot of emotional trauma, emotional baggage that the individuals that didn't feel supported, didn't feel safe around you, didn't feel secure, or didn't feel secured from you are going to carry with them moving forward. And that breaks trust. Now, trust can be rebuilt, but it takes time. But again, the flip side is when an individual, has done, let's say they've done a task, a job, for a little amount of time, but there's some aspects, some areas, of their skill set, of their technique that needs working on, then it is entirely appropriate to stand beside them and have them show you what they're doing so you can reinforce the positive and start to close the gaps on the areas that need improving. I trust that makes sense.
That does.
Cool. So we've got behind and beside. Now we look at the next one, okay? And that position is between. From a family perspective, if your family's under threat, under danger, right, one of the most important positions, one of the most authoritative positions, one of the most commanding positions you can take is to place yourself between your family and the danger and the threat that is imminent to them and for them right now. Now, that takes an incredible amount of courage. It takes an incredible amount of conviction, and it takes an incredible amount of confidence that you can provide the required protection and really persist in neutralising that threat, that danger, so that you carve out a safe passage for your family to follow. The same thing happens in your workshop, right? When individuals feel attacked, under threat, clear and present danger, you will need to put yourself between them and that threat until they have the required knowledge, skills, attitudes, habits to handle that situation by themselves, for themselves. Now, when we've seen an individual perform, handle themselves in that situation, on a more consistent basis, then we can revert to one of those previous two positions, beside or behind. But until we have clearly shown someone how they can move from point A to point B safely, we cannot remove ourselves, we cannot take ourselves away from that position between them and the threat that they feel. And that's going to be a threat to their, competence, their confidence, and their capacity to demonstrate that they are a valuable and worthy member of your team.
And while we shouldn't remove ourselves from that between position or the beside or the behind before we can see that our team member is ready, many shop owners do, and as a result, they sabotage the ability of that team member to perform at an optimal level.
Yeah, totally. So either one of those three positions, put yourself in your team's shoes right now, or if you want, put yourself in your kid's shoes right now. Any one of those positions, behind, beside, between, what does it say to your team or your family? Well, they can look around and they can still see that you're there. So essentially, they know you've got their back if they need it. They can reach out and ask for help, get your opinion, have a conversation with you around what could be done here. It is not removing yourself from the picture. It's actually just at times removing yourself from the path that's already been laid out for them to follow, but they always know that you're there and you're available should the situation call for your involvement. You're not there all the time, but they can see that you can be there in a moment's notice.
Fantastic. So these are just 3 small identifiers for how you can be using your leadership more effectively. If you are, feeling overwhelmed at the prospect of doing that work, you know that you need to improve your leadership, but you're not sure how. Dean, you've just given them 3 fairly simple ways of knowing how they should be showing up as a leader and when they should be stepping away.
Yeah, just think of your team as your family. You would never expose your family to danger or the threat of danger until such a time that you felt they were capable of handling it. So don't do that to your team.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us again today for Performance Hub.
Thanks for having me on the podcast, Rach.
Take a smoko and review us on your Apple Podcast app or wherever you listen.
And if you haven't yet, make sure you head over to Facebook and join our free auto repair shop only Facebook group called Your Profitable Auto Repair Shop. Every day there are dozens of posts in there from auto repair shop owners all around the world who are seeking and sharing best practice. We would love to see you in there. Thanks for listening in again this week. We look forward to speaking with you again next week.
Thanks for listening to Whispering Loudly, the award-winning Workshop Whisperer podcast, as featured by Apple with Rachael Evans, the #1 automotive business coach in the aftermarket. Thanks to titanium sponsor Mechanic Desk and gold sponsor Podium.